separating the milk. My mom did a lot of it, and she wore herself out. And that was just the way it was. My dad, he'd be out like working something with logging or something like that, you know, so that he'd gone. They had logging camps around too, where they had a camp for their men. Transportation wasn't like it is now. In fact, the roads weren't that many roads around. The only road to Avon, you had a little road up here that took off from Parcel Road and went through the woods and across the canyon and over into Avon. There was no road out the Hansfield road at all. That was before Mike. Well, it was just building that road.
So where did they ship all this lumber to? That they were not-
Well, it went on the ships to all over the Orient, every place. They had, I don't remember the sailing ships. Well, I do, a little bit. But most of it was the steamships and lumber schooners and stuff. Mainly it went down the coast to San Francisco, Los Angeles area, all of them out. But then they shipped a lot of it overseas. That was a huge mill, the old mill in Port Campbell, when they were going in the early 30s and stuff. Of course, they had 5-6 foot logs to cut through them.
Were there any notable things that happened during your youth? You know, like today,
Yeah.
you know, there might have been something earth-shattering that
I
happened.
can remember, and I don't know if it was exact year it was either 32 or 3. We had a horrendous big windstorm, and it sank a couple boats up at Port Townsend and blew everything down. And I remember the road out there to our place around the water, the road that went around the water. I can remember going down with my dad, and with their saws, and him and the neighbor too, they cut those big trees out that fell across the road. They did that for a couple days so they could get the help the county could never get out. It was huge, big old trees come down across the road. Of course, we didn't have any power. We didn't worry about knocking down the power. We didn't get lights till about 34, I think it was. 33 or 34.
And then how about your phone? You didn't get a phone till?
We had a phone. Well, we almost had a phone, I think, before we had power. Pretty close to it.
Because your dad helped put the
We put their own poles and stuff in, and they put the... Yeah, my dad, he furnished all the... See, the main power in them days came in at President Point. Came across the water from Richmond Beach. They had cables across there. And my dad had the contract, him and his partner, to furnish all the poles and set all the poles from there clear over to Christensen Corner, which is down the Bond Road where that substation is.
Oh, yeah.
They furnished all the poles and set them for the power company. It was in, I can remember that myself. They had to dig those holes about 7 foot deep. They all dug by hand. And they raised all them poles with the horses. I think that was about, do you remember, Bill, when they set that power line in there? That was about 33 or 34. We didn't have any power until electricity.
And I think it was about that time.
Yeah. My dad, he set all those poles.
This is Bill Reynolds.
No, we know each other.
We're not talking to him, we're talking to the camera right here.
Okay. All
So
right.
if you wanna
Okay.
swing the camera over and
My dad and his partner, they furnished all those power poles and set them. They dug those holes by hands. They used to set all them poles up with the horses.
Well,
So aside from this big windstorm, 32, 33,
Yeah.
any big forest fires, any big catastrophes, or any other notable things?
Not around
Aside
this,
from-
right in this area. I remember the big fire and when they burned up most of the land across the canal. I think it was 37, 38 in that area.
about that, yeah.
Yeah. I can remember when they had the big fires going on Whidbey Island, you couldn't even see across the water here. It was so smoky. Not Whidbey Island, Vancouver Island.
Okay.
Of course, we had that Columbus Day storm. That's in modern time.
That's modern times. I lost a bunch of trees on my property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was the...
I was coming home from the East Coast and we couldn't land. We had to go to Portland.
Oh, for gosh
Oh,
sake.
no, we weren't going to go to Portland. We couldn't go to Portland. We had to come direct to Seattle.
Yeah, they had an awful, that was hit down in that west of Portland in that area, I guess, was the hardest.
So, you talk about your dad doing a lot of logging and things like that. Now, I know they didn't have the modern chainsaws like we have today. Okay. So he had his own hand saws?
Yeah, in fact, when we sold that place, they left it. I left it. We had one saw, was 11 foot, I remember that, 11-foot falling saw.
In last 4th of July parade, we had one of those buck saws that was gasoline powered, and it was 1885, I believe, was when it was. And that was, we got that from the Brazos and had it in the parade.
Yeah, that's the
So
old,
the historical
that's the old
society.
saw I cut wood with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had drag saws, well, they didn't use them in the woods, it was all by hand or felt.
And what you had to do in those days was get somebody strong on one end of a crosscut and let somebody ride the other end. Well, I'm Bill Reynolds, and I started this historical society about 20 years ago. And the reason was I was trying to get a ledger from a woman that lived in the caretaker house in the old Newell farm. And I finally, she sold the house, and she said, take it to the Kingston, or the Kitsap Historical Society. And I said, okay, so I took it down there one day and showed it to them, and I came back about a week later. They said, send us our ledger. I said, no, it's not your ledger. Oh, yes, it is. Mrs. Gasparovich gave it to us, and I said it wasn't hers to give. Belongs to the Newell family. So that's when I started the Historical Society. So now we're interviewing the old timers. I guess we're all old timers. I originally came here in 1929.
And where did you come from?
I'm a native of Seattle, born in Tacoma, native of Seattle.